On the 27th of August, 1883, in Batavia, the pen of a recording barometer jumped, as if the paper had been struck. Within the hour, the same jolt was written in Calcutta. Then Paris, then in stations no one had told, all around the world. Every instrument on Earth had written down the same shock, and nobody yet knew what had made it. 100 miles away, an island had just stopped existing. The traces all pointed to one place, the Sunda Strait between Java and Sumatra. To find what had stopped existing, you have to go back 3 months. It was called Krakatoa. Uninhabited, forested, 3 volcanic cones asleep in a warm sea, quiet for 200 years. In May, it woke, venting ash and steam for months, while passing ships slowed just to watch the show. No one understood what that meant. By the end of August, the show was over. On the morning of the 27th, it came not one explosion, but a series, each more violent than the last. Building all morning to the greatest of them, at 2 minutes past 10. The mountain had torn open its own magma chamber. Seawater poured in, and the island was blown apart from within. The northern 2/3 of Krakatoa collapsed into the ocean, leaving a hole in the seafloor 6 kilometers across. Around 20 cubic kilometers of rock and ash were thrown into the sky. This is what the pen had felt. Then the sound arrived, 4,800 kilometers away, on Rodriguez Island near Mauritius. The island's chief of police wrote in his log, the distant roar of heavy guns. It was Krakatoa, heard across about 1/13 of the Earth's surface, the farthest a sound has ever been documented. 40 miles from the strait, aboard the sailing ship Norham Castle, the captain wrote that the eardrums of over half his crew had been shattered. But the sound was not what killed. The collapsing island shoved the ocean aside, and walls of water raced outward, over 30 meters high, erasing 165 coastal towns. A Dutch warship, the Barrow, was carried nearly 3 kilometers inland and left stranded up a valley. Her entire crew lost. When the water finally stilled, the official toll was 36,417. Roughly 9 in 10 had died not from the fire, but from the sea. The eruption had thrown ash and sulfur into the stratosphere, and the winds smeared the veil around the whole planet. For months, sunsets everywhere burned an unnatural red. In New York and New Haven, fire brigades raced out, again and again, toward a glow on the horizon they were sure was a great fire. There was no fire. It was the sky itself. The moon turned blue, the sun at times green. And the veil dimmed the sunlight enough to cool the entire Earth by about half a degree. And here is the strangest part, the part that turned a disaster into a discovery. How do we know the shockwaves circled the world? Because it wrote its own record. At weather stations across Europe, America, Asia, the needles twitched again and again, on a schedule, every 34 hours the time to travel once around the Earth. It was logged 7 times over 5 days out and back, about 3.5 times around. For one of the first times in history, people reconstructed a single event from the instruments of an entire planet. There was one more reason Krakatoa was different. Undersea telegraph cables now stitched the continents together, and within a day, the news had run from the Strait to London to San Francisco. In 1888, the Royal Society gathered it all, every barometer trace, every sketch of the sky, every distant report into one enormous volume. The first time our species studied a single moment as one planet. Where the mountain had stood, there was only sea. For decades, nothing. Then the water at the center began to boil. Small islands rose and washed away again, until, in 1930, a new cone finally held above the sea. They named it Anak Krakatau, the child of Krakatoa. Still there, still growing, still now and then erupting. Out of the same wound in the ocean, the mountain is quietly building itself back.